Hey everyone, this is Zola and I'm back after 6 month absence like Colo Toure. I think it was 6 months, probably about 6 months. If you don't know what I'm talking about, you obviously don't like football or soccer, I guess. Okay, this is going to be fun. It's been a while and today's tutorial was suggested by John Dickinson from Motionworks. And we're going to be having a look at the unfolding animation which is at the end of my reel, which is a nice segue onto my reel. I've finally finished it, and this was part of the reason why I was really lax in doing tutorials at the end of last year. I really just was trying to get this finished and it just wasn't happening, and then, you know, obviously Christmas festive period, lots of holidays, not much work gets done. So yeah, I mean, I'm sorry about that, but you know, we're here now, 2012, new start and all that. And let's just take a step back. Zolamedia.com is dead. It has been buried and will never be seen the light of day again. I just thought it was a pointless portal for my videos when you can just follow me on YouTube or Vimeo or Twitter. I obviously tweet the tutorials when they come out anyway, so if you follow me on one of them free, you're good to see these, and my site is just pointless and I didn't have the time to bother with it, basically. So without further ado, let's get into it. I started in Illustrator, which is when I'm going into 3D and I'm trying to visualize things. I usually start in Illustrator, and I have a very rough kind of vector idea of what I wanted the logo to look like. I started with just going through the fonts and finding a nice font which had a nice outline, and then I started moving it about with the direct selection tool, and then started building around it, and eventually got this to the point where I was happy enough where I could, as you can see, this is not perfectly round here, but this is very, very rough. And I thought, yeah, you know, I like this, I'll take this into cinema. It was an idea, obviously I had it open as a reference, excuse me. So in we went into cinema, and as you can see, I've had a few run-throughs of this tutorial. 7 unopened scenes. There we go. Okay, so this is the final scene, and this will look familiar as you've just watched it 5 minutes ago, and unless you have the memory span of a flea, of course. And yeah, I mean, I have 3 cameras set up here. The one which is used for the actual ident itself, a very slow moving camera, which I find is the best if you look at like the great studios, Lionsgate, DreamWorks, all that kind of stuff. They're very slow moving cameras, and your eye is just caught by what's happening in the middle, basically. And then I set up a couple of really dynamic camera angles for the reel, just to kind of pad it out and show some of the work I did, really, because a lot of the kind of little details that goes on here, for example, doesn't get seen. So yeah, there we have it. Let's get into it. I'm not going to explain exactly how this was worked, but I'm going to run you through each of the steps, and hopefully you'll learn some stuff and might demystify anything that you don't understand in how this was made. We're starting with primitives, just keyframing, simple scale, and if you look here, this is just a tube, you know, just a donut. I've just had a donut actually, so I have donuts on my mind, and it's just a donut scaling up with a bigger donut outside here, and this one has a fillet on as well. But once again, just a primitive, and if you look here, we have the slice parameter animated, which is why you can see it starting from virtually nothing, comes out, expands, and I have 2 of these, and they're expanding to 180 each. So quite simple there. We have these little nuts and bolts here. If I render this, so we have these little nuts and bolts around the outside, and they're literally just primitive spheres knocked down to 3 segments and left on render perfect. And a little gust of wind behind me there, my housemate. That's going to stink in a few minutes. Cloner, and set it to radial, I think. And, you know, you can once again keyframe all these parameters, and although they look like diamonds when you render, they will be perfect circles. So good for saving space in your scene, but also having circles. this is a time saver that I've got set up here. It's the symmetry object, and as you can see here, you can put an object into a symmetry object and it will just duplicate whatever's happening. And that's not just the geometry, that's also the animation. So if I close this, come back into my master scene, you'll see that what's happening here is I've only animated this once basically. We'll have this coming out, and the chevrons are done separately. I'll show you those in a minute. But that is then mirrored here, and then I've mirrored all of this over this side just to save yourself the work. You don't need to do it twice. And if you want it to match up perfectly, then you know, symmetry object's the way to go, rather than duplicating it and rotating it, which can obviously be a pain in the backside. So the first part of the animation is the one you want to be the most complex for me. I mean, there's lots of references out there, tutorials, and also films, Transformers obviously, lots of kind of mecha anime, the old Transformers cartoons actually, and more things like Gundam and Code Geass, and you know, if any of you guys watch anime, then those are things you can definitely take references from. And for me, what I saw when I was watching these, also a quick tip, hold down J, and you can actually scrub through your timeline from anywhere on the screen, as long as you're on the main timeline here. So I learned that from Nico, who's a very talented Cinema 4D artist, and also this was inspired by an artist called Alex Mapar, M-A-P-A-R, I believe. Very talented Cinema 4D, for me one of the best. Definitely check out his work, and part of his reel inspired this actually. Obviously I took it down a different path myself, but that was the one that kick-started the idea. So I doubt you'll ever see this, Alex, but thank you very much. So yeah, I mean, I really like the unfolding all at once. The more things are going on, the more complex things look, and that is inevitably when things look cool. You'll see with all these animations here, what I'm doing is animating them in stages. So this comes out, and then it rotates, then it moves in, and can you see I've got a couple of frames where nothing happens in between, and that's essential to selling the robotic look. Just having things happen and then stop and then happen straight away after will not work. If it's all one fluid motion, robots don't actually work like that. You can watch films like Wall-E or Johnny Five, I can't remember what the film's called, but any film with a robot in, and you'll see it's a kind of step-by-step movement, step out, and then obviously parts of this happen a lot faster, but as long as the general idea is that things are mechanical and happening in steps, then you'll really kind of get that look. So a lot of this is really simple. I mean, things are appearing one by one here, and that is achieved through a very simple technique, but if you're not an After Effects kind of intermediate, you might not know this, and it's a bit like keyframing in a video program, the opacity. If you go right click on an object, go to tags, display, you can, in here, if you tick visibility and then use that, control click on that, and you can keyframe the visibility of a parameter. As you can see here, it's going down, and if you bring it to 0, it's disappeared. So that is what's happening with all these things, which is why they're appearing step by step. But obviously the user is sold on the idea that things are appearing out of kind of things underneath, when really they're just appearing and folding out. You don't need to go into all that kind of detail down here if the user, or the viewer, sorry, is never going to see that. So bear that in mind. One thing we have here, so we have kind of main chevron coming out, folding out. Once again, symmetry object, up and down, don't need to do that twice. These chevrons, really simple technique. I use this a couple of times in the animation, but definitely worth knowing. So it's just a cube, go into our polygon mode here, and there you have it, and that's the chevron dropped into a cloner obviously, and cloned on the x-axis, and once you have that spacing right, you can clone it out as many times as you want obviously, and then just get a plane effector and set the fall off to linear, And if we rotate this around now, just so that you'll see there's a little arrow pointing, and so then when this runs through these clones one by one, as you can see at the moment we're just affecting the height parameter, but you can also affect the scale. So if I bring this down to, you know, -1 or -9, basically as it comes out, as you can see this is happening backwards, so I'm going to go into fall off and invert this. But you can have them starting, if you have them starting at -1 they'll be invisible basically, and then you can have them scaling up one by one. That's the only thing that's happening here. So yeah, I think that just about covers that. I'm just having a quick look on my notes here to see if I've forgotten anything. Definitely try and save yourself as much time as possible. Once again, if you've done an animation, so I'm going to have this cube here, right? And I'm going to scale it down. So I'm going to have the things, and then if I bring the scale down, one thing I will say, sticky keys, godsend. If you hold down a key like R to switch to rotate, but then let go of R, then you will go back to whatever tool you had before, and that's really useful because, say for example you want to move the axis of this, usually you would come here or press L, and you press L and then you press E, and then you move it and then you press L again to come out of axis mode. Really not what you want to be doing, way too many steps there, so just hold down L and you'll switch to the axis mode. You can move it, let go of L, you're back with the move tool. And just kind of switching between sticky keys is essential to saving yourself seconds, but in the long run, you know, minutes and then hours if you're working on something really long. So I'm going to scale this out and then keyframe and then, I don't know, scale back in. Once again, this is kind of pointless. Oh, I hate it when this happens. Okay, scale. Let's do that, I guess. And we're going to come out here and then it's coming back. So we're happy with that. That's an animation. But say I want this animation to actually happen over here now. So I've done that and it will shoot back to the place it was before. But you can, if you throw this into null, so do Alt G and then move the null itself, then you can get away with moving that null. And that thing will still happen. And that happened a lot with some of the animations. Like I'd done a nice little unfolding animation but wanted to move it, and so what I ended up doing is throwing in a null, and then you can move that null around itself and still keep the actual individual animations, and that's really useful. And actually the last thing I want to cover is down here, and so we have the kind of cap comes out and we have the thing flip out and then fold and then fold, and this is the importance. If you're a character modeler or know anything about IKs and hierarchies, this will be quite familiar to you. But as you can see here, I have things parented within one another, and at the very bottom is the last piece. And all I've had to do, look, this is 2 keyframes, 1, 2, but yet it's still moving here, and that's because I've then made that a child of the thing above it, which is once again 2 keyframes. You know, it moves from here, from there, and it just flips, you know, and once again it's moving here because it's a child of the thing above it. So if you're going to be having things unfolding out of other things, you can save yourself a hell of a lot of animation just by parenting them within each other, and then they will react accordingly and you won't have to animate this moving this. It might seem, you know, really obvious now, but you'd be amazed how many times people have made things hard for themselves. And also one thing I will say is, if you are coming into making something like this, if we have a look over here, this, you can't even, like, no one would have seen this happen because of the final angle I chose. But save yourself time. I mean, I made this little animation and I'm showing it you now, but hell no one will actually ever see that aside from anyone watching this tutorial. And that's a bit stupid really on my part, but I wasn't sure what angles I was going to use when I was building this, so I made it anyway, and it looks cool here. But don't spend time on little animations if your camera is going to be focusing on this area, which is in the end what happened. Well, I used the top down one, and because you're just, it's a lot of work for basically not a lot of things that no one's ever going to see. You know, you can kind of see what's happening there, but no one's going to notice that because they're just kind of admiring the whole bigger picture sort of thing. So that was it. You know, I added a couple of flares here and there and some glow in After Effects, but that's all pretty basic stuff. So I hope you enjoyed this. I certainly hope it won't be 6 months before the next tutorial. I plan to do one again real soon. So if you have any questions, hit me up in the comments box or tweet at me and I'll try and get to them. Until next time, this is Zola and I'll see you soon.